Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm an interviewer, author, journalist and broadcaster. And what you're about to hear is one of the 1,400 interviews I did over a 30-year period for nearly all major media outlets in Ireland. But do allow for the fact that many of the interviews were done for the print media and recorded on cassette tapes. So some are, let's say, sonically challenged. But sonic considerations should give way to historical significance, I believe. And I'm glad to say that at least some powers that be in RTE Radio 1 agreed with me on this, and broadcast between the years 2015 and 2018 many of my interviews in a series called The Joe Jackson Tapes Revisited. What follows is a programme I was going to broadcast in that series but never did. And this podcast differs in one major sense from all those shows. For one thing, it's based on an eBook, Bob Geldof, The Joe Jackson Interviews Plus. The plus in the title refers to the fact that the eBook contains not only the two major interviews we did, first in 1989, then in 2001, it also contains a fragment of memoir. And growing up in Dun Laoghaire I, I did know Geldof, albeit from a distance that was largely defined by the fact that he came from the so-called right side of the tracks and I came from the other side. Even so, our paths crossed on countless occasions in local teenage meeting places such as Murray's Record Centre, the Bamboo Café, the People's Park and at parties, and we had a mutual friend called Peter Finnegan. Later again, Bob and I met in the Dole office, and I have fond memories of us talking about bands like The Animals and Dr. Feelgood, and Bob saying he wanted to be a rock star. Me, I wanted to be a writer. Not only that, by 1977 he had become a rock star, and I'd become a photographer for Irish rock magazine Hot Press. I photographed Geldof on stage in Dalymount Park, and at the launch of the first album by the Boomtown Rats. All of this is probably why towards the end of the second part of this interview, it'll follow in another podcast. Geldof says he's uncomfortable being interviewed by me because I know too much about him. Although that comment may have more to do with the instinctual insights into his psyche which I stumbled across during this interview, and in which the man is mercilessly truthful at times, and at other points tears into me because of what he calls the intrusive nature of the questions I asked in relation to his late wife Paula Yates. Later, I heard that Bob phoned my editor and said that I had been a bit too hard on him. To which the editor, fair dues to him, replied, "Jesus, Bob." Actually, I didn't know that was Geldof's full name, did you? Joe was only being as hard on you as you were when you worked for this magazine. No doubt, Geldof probably doesn't agree with my contention that by pushing him as hard as I did, I got him to deliver the most honest interview he had given, or has maybe given since. Either way, Bob has not spoken to me since the interview, either professionally or on a personal level, if our paths cross socially, as happened recently when we were at an exhibition of hot press covers. He basically grunted. Anyway, the interview was done in the Soho Club in London, and it coincided with the release of his album Sex, Age and Death. You can read the original typescript, never published in full in any magazine that carried the article, on joejacksoninterviewer.com. I was saying to John, it's good to talk to you when I actually like the album. I'm impressed by it and I like the lyrics. I think it's the best thing you've done.
Oh, God. Thanks.
You know, and I have been critical of your work along the way, so no need to bullshit. I want to start, probably everybody's talking to you about Paula, or as much as you want to talk about. I'd like to kick off by talking about Jan, just the song. I mean, it's a very tender, but a very explicit love song.
It was, people aren't talking to me about Paula or Jan, to be honest, because I won't, really talk about specific individuals or the specifics, and I won't talk about them not for really any reasons of prurience, but I won't get involved in the sort of pornography of intrusion, but I don't mind talking about the emotional landscape of feeling. Right. And that's what a record is, and that's what I think this is. Obviously the song 10:15 is about Jan, because I say it, but what it is for me is and purely coincidentally that it's the end track after a record that deals largely with grief and loss and pain and disappointment and bitterness and anger, and then at the end you get this small redemptive note, and it is as much as possible a snap of a moment of kindness and tenderness in an otherwise hurricane of piteous cruelty.
That's not Jan on the cover, is it?
No.
Okay. Does she have any problem with the explicit nature of the lyrics?
In that song?
In a couple of ways, yeah.
No, she cried.
When you read the lyric?
No,
when
she, I mean, I don't play it to her, but I mean, she listened to it and read the lyrics and just, gave me a hug.
All right, okay. You present yourself as very defenseless in it. It's not exactly the public about Geldof. Like, it's her taking care of you, bathing you, soothing your soul, reading Baudelaire. I mean, it's kind of like presenting yourself very raw, naked, and vulnerable.
Female journalists, and I've not done many interviews,
right.
Because I don't want to, because I'll be asked about stuff. But the few I've done, I've said that in general. This is towards the end of the interviews. They've always said that when they came in and met me, they were almost embarrassed because they'd read the lyrics, and it was almost just too much. It's unnecessarily sort of raw or honest or whatever. But I'm not sure it's honest. It's just a description of feeling, and then they're looking at sort of this person that they think they know lots about. I'm not sure that I think that I've always been fairly direct about anything at all that's happened to me. I mean, the criticism of, well, it wasn't a criticism at all, but I mean, the comment about the book I wrote was that it was, fucking hell, or is he sure he wants to say that, those things.
Well, it was Pat James's famous comment that when you get older, Paula will regret the explicit nature of a lot of the stuff. How they explain this then to their kids. That was his review.
Really, well, that's very interesting. It's prescient in a way. I don't regret it at all. Okay. But the kids are now old enough to read the book, and what's odd about my book is that it's in school libraries as well as other libraries.
It's fair enough to see it on the curriculum in Ireland.
And like one of the middle ones said, "God, Dad, you're sick! I don't believe it." And like they were going on like this, and
what part did she read?
I don't know. She just kept saying, "Oh my God, this is sick."
Who said this?
It was Peaches.
All right, okay.
And then Pixie's going, "What? I'm not telling you. And she's like a year younger, and
Are they only reading it now? I suppose they are.
Yeah, because they couldn't give a toss, because I'm like Dad,
But what about Fifi?
Oh,
she's what, 18, 19 now?
She's 18.
Yeah, so she's reading it now. She's the
No, she would have read it before.
Right, okay. So how did she feel? Did she come, Dad, this is a bit much?
No.
No?
No, I speak exactly like I speak to you with them. I mean, I'm unapologetic about who I am and what I am. And, I mean, they know that bit of me much more than the other bits, So, often I write the way... Look, the thing is that in general I'm melancholic by disposition. I'm not Mr. Chuckles,
Right.
And though I seek that...
seek Chuckles?
Yeah, I
seek lightness.
Yeah, exactly. And, grace, because I'm graceless, and joy, because I'm melancholic.
Right.
So, that was given to me for many years, and then it was withdrawn.
Which, the joy and the light?
The joy and fun and grace and beauty. And
when was it withdrawn?
1995.
From Paula left? Or when it all fell apart?
Yeah. And
but did your whole emotional landscape immediately deteriorate, collapse inwards?
Yeah, it utterly imploded is an oft-used word, but I was wholly unable to function at all as a person, specifically as a man. I mean, you note that the album is littered with words like empty, arid, dry. Adrian, I've been dreaming of deserts again. I mean, I only know that from doing this stuff. And that aridity, that emptiness, that those oceans of loneliness and universes of emptiness and deserts of grief and loss is the area you inhabit for a long time.
But what was it? Was it initiated by her leaving, by the death of love, the end of love after a long period of loving each other, or the time on your own afterwards? I mean, what actually triggered the projection into that desert? You know,
when love was withdrawn, yeah.
But hadn't love been withdrawn before she left?
I don't want to go into the story of what happened. I can only answer you specifically that that's when it happened.
But I thought the love had died before she left, if I'm wrong. That's what has been said.
No, you're wrong.
Am I wrong? Okay.
Or at least I wasn't aware of it.
Alright, because even the last time I talked to you, which was 11 years ago, I had brought up the suggestion that you were seeing someone else and she was seeing someone else already. Now, I didn't go to print with that, but my feeling was that it was beginning to fall apart even then, and that's totally wrong. Is that in 89?
No, that would be totally wrong.
Because he's both had other lovers.
No, that's not true.
Alright, okay. So that was not...
So I don't want to talk about that stuff.
But you do write about it in the I mean, even the kick-off track on the album is, I don't know how her daughters, you're deriding their mother.
No, but you got the wrong sense. You're being a bit tabloidy, and
well, I'm just gonna read the lyrics and listen to the songs.
Sure.
You know?
But because you know, or you think you know the story, you will then read into the lyrics stuff. So I won't talk about our lives together, but you're wrong about what you just said, and I wouldn't know why you were saying that. But anyway,
which one specifically wrong?
Well, what do all the stuff you said prior to the question?
Just the suggestion that you each had found someone else within the marriage, other people within the marriage anyway. I'm only going on everything I also read, and I'm not reading tabloids. I'm reading the Irish Times, I was reading the Observer, the Guardian, and all that when the marriage fell apart. And she said you had had at least 6 other relationships, and there were loads of other relationships she had.
But that's...
So I was just...
But that's you know, I won't go into that.
Just in terms of just as a man and woman together.
I won't go into us as a man and woman together.
All right.
But you're wrong.
All right.
Okay. You just have to accept that.
Okay. Well, then tell me what in the lyric where you seem to be mocking her.
No. The song one for me is a song of disappointment. You're with, you understand totally someone who, more than any other person on the planet, events occur, and next minute you see this other person who is not at all the individual you were with for 19 years, and you kind of go, what's that? What about the grace and the joy and the light? That's so disappointing.
And that's what the
that's the atmosphere. The record is about.
No, but that particular track, this one's for me.
Yeah, but you see, it's the totality.
All right.
The point about music is I can't talk about the stuff. Literally, I can't talk about it. It's unsayable for me. There are things that are unsayable. And music, cliche that it is a higher language. And it's a higher language because it can articulate feeling. It can articulate the unspeakable. And, I mean, literally the unspeakable. And so you get praise-seed emotion in lyrics, which, unlike poetry, can be completely unspecific, because the underlying it all is this other instrument and language, which is the music. And so you understand a greater depth to an expression or a phrase. And so you can, through songs, even pop songs, talk about inchoate things like emotion and feeling. And so when I say to you the record is about grief, loss, pain, disappointment, bewilderment, anger, that's what it is. And you can wrap them up in songs and say that's what Like One For Me, without a shadow of a doubt, and I'm not being coy, is about disappointment, you know. And it happens to be the first song simply because when you make a record, you know, you've got loads of songs, and I put 10 on this record simply because, you know, with CD you can have 2 hours of music, but really after a certain point you stop listening, and any individual's singular idea, 10 songs is more than enough. It seems to be the right amount. So how I picked out of the maybe 17 songs that deserve to be on the record, I start, that sets the atmosphere, that's good. This one follows that, it just fits in with the mood, until I got to the last one, which coincidentally was 10:15. I mean, a friend of mine, a journalist who's heard all the songs, said, there's a song called The Original Miss Jesus. He said, you've got to put that on it. That's the best. The Original Miss Jesus, yeah. And you've got to put that on it, that's the best one. And I said, well, yeah, maybe, but, you know, no, it doesn't fit. There's no space for it. He said, it doesn't matter. And I said, it does matter. Because in the totality, for bizarrely and coincidentally, practically all the emotions that you felt, this void. I think in one of the songs, The New Routine, there's a line, past nowhere, nothing, and the void between them. That's what you are, again, I come back to that landscape that you inhabit. And, you know, when I was doing the record, Pete said, look, Bob, what are we making here? What is this? And I said, it's just nothing. It's just, it doesn't demand anything. It's flat. I said, all the tones should be flat. I said, because it's a good word. It's what it feels like. And it's, you know, the pictorial description is 2 a.m, weary. Not exhausted, that's a physical state. Weary, it's a metaphysical state. You're just there. You're just breathing. You're just breathing. That's it. And that's what it's about. So, you know.
Don't like me asking you a question. If I ask specific questions about Jan, which is a love song, but some,
no, 10:15 is.
10:15, I keep my misnaming it. Okay, 10:15 is a love song. And a song of solace and redemption.
No, but
you answer that. But if I bring up questions about which people are already hooking into lyrics about inside your head, or
I'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
Yeah, no, but just that idea. The idea that you were saying that you don't take your clothes off for too often or whatever. If I'm misquoting, I'm sorry, I'll put it right in the article.
Yeah, more or less.
That's kind of, and mutton dressed up as lamb in ghostly guises. Everybody will have to see Paula. I'm just asking you, and her daughters will see Paula. I'm just asking you explain that to.
Well, the girls listen. Well, so what? That's not your business, But I mean, the point is that the kids hear the record, and they think it's just a bunch of songs by Dad who's shite anyway, And they say and they were all there when I was, doing this video thing, and they were taking snaps and stuff like that, and they don't relate to that at all.
If he doesn't break down the lyrics and say, "Dad, what does this mean?"
No. They just hear my songs and that's it, and generally, they're more into Blink 182 and Eminem, and they think this is seriously fucking lame and what am I twatting on about, and right. And in fact specifically in that song, one of them thought it was about something else. They said I said, what do you think it's about? And they said, I think it's, and they went off in their own little thing, exactly as a punter hearing would be, but with you being specific, which you're wrong to be.
Wrong to be specific, you think it's about Paula?
In lots of ways, yes. No, you're not wrong. It's trying to grasp one of the things that was so predominant. Why would I didn't sit down and write the song and say, that's one of the emotions I feel, and do it. I don't even know when I began this record. I know when it stopped because you cut the record, but I don't know when I began it. The point was that him, my mate there, and he's probably my best friend, and male friends and I never experienced it, but just gathered about, and he moved into the house, and I was living a pretty peripatetic lifestyle, at least I came to, and he just, I don't even remember when and for 2 years he stayed with me and just took care of me. And
what's his name? You don't
Howard, yeah. And Pete Briquette is the same. I mean, I've known Pete, since 1975 with the Rats, and extremely well. And the only thing that he could do, really, he thought, was just be there. And he arrived with sort of recording stuff under his arm, and said, if you want any, if you feel like it, I'd be down in the basement, And I'm not even aware that these guys were there. And I just kept hearing, I didn't want to listen to music, I didn't hear any music, but Pete was doing stuff for Tricky, and he was doing stuff for TV things, and he was playing a lot of sequences. And when I began even to want to hear music again, that was right. This monotonous but quite clever stuff. And my friends are the Underworld, that group. Yeah. And I'd written stuff with Rick and Carl on the Happy Club. I'd written with Rick and Carl 2 songs. And we'd done this musical together with an Irish poet, what's her name, Maura O'Donnell or something. Yeah. And she'd asked me to do the music and lyrics. And I said, you're a poet, you do the lyrics. And she said, no, it's a specific thing, I can't do lyrics, and you do it. And it was actually pretty lame, but Rick and Carl, myself, did the music for this thing, and so I'm familiar with all their stuff and that sort of thing, and that's what I wanted. No stuff with beginnings, middles and ends, because this thing didn't seem to have any beginning, middle and end. And eventually when a musical sensibility began to creep back, and that was the last facility, because it's so innate, as opposed to a facility like business, which doesn't mean anything.
That came back earlier.
Yes, it's an empirical thing, it's an empirical event. You do a deal or something.
But facility for passion, you've spoken about that already in Mary Claire. Facility for sex?
That wasn't present at all.
Which came back first, music or the facility for passion?
Passion or sex? Sex is a facility,
yeah.
So that came back because...
Well, you're really incapacitated at a core level.
Yeah, utterly.
Body and soul.
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
Yeah. So that you didn't feel... Well, you just couldn't function.
I couldn't feel... I don't know if it was in Marie Claire, but I couldn't feel my dick. Literally, if I ask you to tune into your dick, you'd say, oh, there it is, okay. Yeah. And I would go through this physical checklist. The pain, what was bizarre was, the cliche of the broken heart. I mean, my ribs ached from the pain in my heart, and I had to go to the doctor because I thought I was, having heart attacks or something, and I was trembling, and Howard was making me eat all right. I wasn't sleeping and I wasn't getting up, and but I was losing incredible amounts of weight, and so I started freaking out a bit, when I could gather sort of coherent thoughts. And he gave me
mentally freaking.
Yeah. No, freaking about like this. To always fuck, it's so weird this, Yeah. And I went to the doctor and he gave me beta blockers, but I didn't like what they did, so I went off them after about a month.
What are they? Sorry, I don't understand.
They're supposed. I don't know what they do. Yeah, and like snooker players take them and things too. And I don't know. They're they're sort of beta blocker thing. I don't know what they're called. Right. Anyway, I took them, but didn't like the vibe, and then. This feeling was so physical as well, just, it was located in your gut, which is like a metaphysical place, as opposed to your stomach. And I would extract this ball, which was where the pain was, and I'd look at it and put it in my hands, and I'd turn around and say, okay, this is who you are. Okay, I know you now, I understand you, and I'd put it back in there. But it was... all this stuff was physical, and it was like, this is so odd. And so, literally below your waist, including your legs, didn't seem to be there if you were tuning into it. Right. And I just thought that was odd.
But how long did that last?
Quite
8 months?
No, a long time. But you don't feel...
How do you get out of that? How do you reconnect with your body then? and so on.
It's a gradual return of facility, and female friends.
Was it your love, like your buddies and your Jean was with you? I presume.
No, not really.
Is it not your lover and your best friend?
No, she wasn't with me then. I mean, that was a gradual thing over this period.
Okay.
And
so you got to do it yourself.
Yeah, you do, and but also with that, female friends would come along, and how they helped me again intuitively, like the male thing. They came along and made me feel I'm not a good-looking person, but they made me feel desirable again, and I knew they were doing it. They came along and said, look, like they absolutely understood that I felt love would never come to you again, that you
felt that,
yeah, that you're ugly, you're undesirable, all those things. And they came along and quite literally, they'd select clothes and say, right, you look a mess, put this on, put that on, and then you're going out and they get a fancy car and swan into some big party, one beautiful girl on each arm, knowing full well the paparazzi go fucking mad. And so the man thing came back. You had to, you felt like shit, and you knew that these lovely women were doing this for you, and yet you felt somehow ridiculously, I understand that, sort of quite up about the fact that these girls, proud sort of as a man thing, that these beautiful women were one on each arm, and also you had to put on the show, and like, I looked like fucking, I looked dreadful, but I've always looked dreadful, so there was a kind of, it came good in the end, this looking crap, and that's what they did.
Did the body all start to function then again?
No, what would happen is that some girlfriends would, they would start being tender with you, just touching you,
caressive.
Yeah, and that felt like an electric shock.
All right, okay.
I mean, really like that there was
just slowly easing you back into.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. And it was
very slowly,
also odd.
Yeah.
Not just, I mean, that was the external world happening inside. That's why you talking about those things strikes me as so jarringly inappropriate.
Okay.
Because what the record is about is that this, that's what was going on. That was so much more important. So there was 6,000 journalists and stuff outside every day, and I understood that was their gig, and really, objectively understood that. But it was like that happened elsewhere, because this thing was so total.
Well, why was there that total collapse? I mean, why even I remember reading in your book, I became a pop star and the legs of the world opened to me, and you were always a sensual man, you were a sex object to a lot of people. Why did it collapse? And how could it collapse with the leaving of one woman? I'm not even talking about specifics again. What was missing there that made it all fall in with the leaving of one woman?
Yes.
Why? Why hadn't your self-image been so strong because of the other lovers?
I never had a big self-image. I mean, here was this beautiful girl I met before we even had our first record, and this sort of, sort of lanky, sort of loudmouth,
Southsider.
Southsider, yeah, and off we went on this wild ride together.
All right.
And so, my entire good life had been shared with this.
But was your self-image dependent on her?
Beautiful girl. What?
Was your entire self-image based on the position in the relationship?
Maybe, you're right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, these are difficult questions.
You only have to look at it when it goes away. You don't have to analyse that while it's happening. But I just find the whole, I've lost love and I've lost father and I've lost, something that I think the inside gets, like you say, and I have to be teased back to sex and teased back to passion.
Yeah.
But that seems like it was an absolute psychic collapse inside.
It was.
Like your entire fucking self-image dissolved.
Well, not even self-image, my entire self dissolved.
Yeah, yourself.
But I mean, that.
But this album.
But this what you're saying is true and strikes me as being real, and why I'm hesitating is because I'm thinking about everything you're saying. I'm saying that's right, what he's saying is right, and there was something you said there that struck me as being specifically true.
Okay.
And
what was it?
I can't remember, but essentially my response to it is that all that I knew of, as I said, grace and light and joy and beauty and stuff that had happened, the good part of my life, if you like, was associated with this person because I'd shared it with them.
Okay.
So and so that went, and so you think all that goes, but utterly it changes you.
Was your own image of your own sexuality altered by the specifics of the leaving, by the person who took over, and you being mocked almost sexually publicly? Was that part of it?
Well, I wasn't aware of that because, I didn't read any stuff. I don't read any stuff about myself. So no, none of that impinged upon me. But when I was made aware of it, I just thought, who are you? This is so disappointing.
To be saying that.
Yeah, you're better than that.
Okay. Which is part of what comes across in the first song.
Well, that's what I say. It's disappointment.
Yeah. You're better than that. You don't have to say that stuff.
Yeah, what's that? This is naff.
Yeah. But did you also feel? Was part of the inner collapse also guilt and recrimination about your fuck-ups in the marriage? It wasn't just a single line of "she left me and I'm falling apart."
No.
There was no guilt or recrimination at that level?
No.
All right. None at all?
No.
Well, do you think you were the ideal partner?
I thought we were great together.
All right. Right until she left? Even when the first signs were there, you thought it would still work out and it'd still last? We'll see our way through this.
I can't go into specifics.
Okay. I understand that. I understand. But I've read such a big fat file on you coming over, and again, they're not tabloids. No, but
But they don't know. I don't talk about it. They're only speculating.
Well, you have spoken about it. You spoke about it with Marie Claire, and you spoke
What
about
did I speak? What did I say?
About the way everything fell apart when she left, and this kind of...
About me?
Yeah.
I don't talk about, speculation and tittle-tattle or the specifics.
I'm only asking about you, but I'm asking about how... I was reading in the Sunday Tribune a profile of you which said, and all the stuff that we read at the time of the court case, that you were violent and broody and self-centered and stingy, right? All those images, true or false, could make a person feel it's not just his fault or her fault or their fault that it's over.
The only thing I'd say to you is that I am not in the least bit violent.
All right, okay.
I can't recall ever once hitting a single individual, man or woman. Okay. And if there is anyone out there who could counterclaim that, I'd like to meet them.
Okay. Violent towards yourself, though. Some people see the sinking into morbid depression.
No, to be specific, are you talking about physical violence?
No, you've thrown that out the window, so I rejected immediately too. No, I'm talking about withdrawal within a loving relationship, sinking into yourself.
I do sink into myself.
Some would see that as a form, not violence, as a form of cruelty, emotional cruelty.
No, honestly,
No, but I'm just asking you, the idea that a person leaves and you're saying, she left me and I fell apart, I just imagine that there's a whole lot of... And you also said that, I have heard you say, that when Paula died, you felt guilty that you could have been there.
I didn't. Who said that?
It's in one of those articles.
Yeah, but that's
not a tabloid.
That's absolute nonsense.
All right.
What do you mean it's not a tabloid? That makes it right.
You would assume that the...
What's the difference?
Times profile will take a little... Roisin Ingle will take a little more.
Well, who the fuck? I've never heard of her. Who is she?
She's right. Yeah.
Okay, so I've never met her. I don't know who she is.
Well, my assumption will be that someone who writes for some of the quality papers might be a bit more sensitive or a bit more insightful, or quote you more accurately.
No, but
So that was a quote I read, that you were filled with self-recrimination. If it's false...
Absolutely not true at all.
All right. Okay. So you saw there were no flaws. You didn't see any flaws within yourself in this period of self-evaluation?
I am totally flawed.
Right.
Or perennially flawed.
Right.
I've said to you I'm melancholic by disposition. I'm sure I'm very difficult to live with.
All right.
Hi, Joe Jackson here again. I thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast. More can be heard on my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com.